everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Magical Jill, and today I'm here with Jay, and we're going to be talking about should Sailor Moon continue now that Sailor Moon Cosmos is out and the series is kind of done, people are saying, and they don't think there's going to be any more, and that's kind of just where the manga ended. So we're going to talk about should it continue.
It's the voice of Naoko off in the future. No, I don't want to write it. Woo. Before we continue, if you enjoyed today's video, you want to leave a like, subscribe for more content, we appreciate you very much. We do Sailor Moon, we do anime, we do Disney Dreamlight Valley videos now, some Disney stuff, cartoons in general, so lots of fun stuff on this channel. And we do have a question of the day for you that we'd like to hear in the comments down below your answer to.
Question of the day!
Would you like Sailor Moon to continue? And if so, how? What format? What stories? You know, do you have a fan pitch? What's your Wattpad, little short story there?
Give us your fanfic link.
Yeah, but you can't post links. They auto-delete. You can summarize your fanfic, though.
Yeah, summarize it. Yeah. So here's why I think that it should continue. Now, I'm not sure if it would continue off of the same timeline from Sailor Moon Crystal, or if maybe Naoko would write more manga. Obviously, nobody can force her to, or what timeline it may go on, but I think it would be awesome if it did continue, because you could definitely do the continuation with the story with Chibiusa and her Sailor Quartet as they get older and become teenagers and take over as Sailor Moon and the main sailors.
Which I would assume there's gotta still be threats out there, right? Like, obviously the original anime was allowed to kind of make up some of what it wanted, so it could create its own threats if it wanted to, or change them. But even in the manga timeline, which Crystal changes a little bit, some of those details are altered in Crystal and in the films. I think that with that, there's gotta be more out there. And if there wasn't, why would you need a Sailor Quartet? Why would you need a new Sailor Moon? Why would you need any of this? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, look, Chibiusa, you're gonna be the next Moon Queen. Right now you're gonna be the Moon Princess. And then when my time, Serenity, is up, you're going to be the next Moon Queen. You're going to be the next ruler of Earth, or whatever you want to take it. And, the thing is, this gets complicated, too, because it does get into a lot of questions with timelines as well. Like, you look at things and you're like, okay, well, how does time travel in Sailor Moon work? Naoko never gets into all the details. I think she does a really good job with storytelling, but she doesn't usually get into the semantics of how little things work, little details. So you have to ask, like, okay, well, the future with Sailor Cosmos, that's obviously one path. The future with Neo Queen Serenity, that's another path. Does that change, when you have the Black Moon Clan interacting with the past? Or the Wise Man, does it not? Is it a circle?
You would also think it might change some with Chibiusa interacting with her mom before she's born.
Unless she was always supposed to.
Yeah,
that's what you kind of get into, all these like weird questions of like how things work. And I would venture to guess that one of the reasons Sailor Moon didn't continue is because those things are complicated. It's a very complex question when you start getting into like where to take the story. But my point is just, you have all these possible futures, and to me, that means there must be possible threats.
Something that a lot of comic books have shown us, and something that I think would make a lot of sense in Sailor Moon, is the fact that, you could definitely take the story where there may be more disgruntled aliens in the universe who want to take over Earth for some reason. Like plenty of different comic books do it, plenty of different universes do it. It could be a very interesting thing to write, I feel like, especially because we've seen some of that before in Sailor Moon.
Yeah, we already see that with characters like the Wise Man,
Queen Beryl.
Yeah, things like the Galaxy Cauldron that are out there and obviously interacting with the world in a cosmic way. Even characters like the Chaos in general.
Yeah.
Like, these are just things that are not necessarily from Earth at all, but they are able to interact with Earth's story, and they're obviously all fictional and made up. So as long as you could write a good story around that, I don't see why that would be a problem.
I also think, another way you could continue it too is at the end of the manga, basically, Sailor Moon and her friends are all still teenagers. Like, they're, still pretty young. They got a lot of life left to live, and a lot of superhero type comic books. And the reason I compare it to this is because I find Sailor Moon to be kind of like a superhero. A lot of superhero type comic books don't usually retire their heroes until their hero gets a little bit too old to do the job, So I think that it would be interesting to see Usagi herself you know, maybe in her 20s with the rest of her friends, dealing with things, you know, learning how to possibly be queen if maybe she wanted to go that route and show us what happened to make her a queen, or, you know, something like that. I just like to see more in Usagi's timeline, just because I really like her and I felt like her story wasn't finished yet, to me anyway.
Well, and there were a lot of things teased with character setup and character dynamics and things too, especially near the end of the manga, to kind of show that bond between these girls and other characters continuing. It's a little odd to me that it just stops.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like it just stops. You could always continue this with more manga. Naoko might not be interested. However, you know, you could have passionate writers continue writing something like that if Naoko was willing to let somebody else do it. Kind of like how when sadly Akira Toriyama passed, he had a protege,
right,
who's now writing.
Toyotaro, yeah.
Yes, who is now writing and making all of this stuff, and, you know, like a successor. So if Naoko wasn't interested, I think that it would be awesome if there was a successor, and I think that could really work.
Yeah, and I think what's frustrating, and, you know, this kind of does come down to one of our main points for why it might not work, is that it seems like Naoko didn't want to tell more story. You know, and I know that some people kind of poke at her writing etiquette, like in terms of they'll say things like, oh, well, you know, it seems like it just trails off, or, oh, well, you know, why wasn't there more, or even, you know, why doesn't Naoko want to write this kind of thing? You know, and at the end of the day, I don't think any of us know the answers to those questions unless you're that person, right?
It does make you wonder if something's so popular and people love it so much, why you wouldn't want to continue it.
Well, especially when my understanding is she also fought to get a lot of the rights back to it and wanted to be very hands-on with those movies, you know, with Eternal and Cosmos, and making sure it was a mostly faithful adaptation. So she obviously cares about the story she told. There was also all of the reports around, and even some confirmations, I believe, around the fact that it was going to end around the end of the Dark Kingdom arc originally, which would have only really been one season, and Toei actually pushed her to write more, which is why, you know, we ended up getting more manga, and then we ended up getting more anime in that old version. So, like, it kind of seems like Naoko was ready to move on from this essentially after Sailor Moon Season 1. Why? I couldn't tell you. Like, I can tell you that for me, if I was making something super popular that printed money that I loved, I don't think I'd really want to stop unless it was getting dragged out and bad.
I would feel obligated by the fans asking me for more to at least make them something, you know, because we haven't gotten anything in terms of manga from Naoko since I think 99 is when the Parallel Universe comic, or Parallel Universe manga came out, where it shows Chibiusa having a little sister, and that's like a different timeline sort of thing, and that's like the only Parallel Universe manga we got, and people assumed we were going to get more, and then we did. Yeah,
it's in terms of Sailor Moon, because she did write some other stuff. It's just she kind of left Sailor Moon behind.
Yeah.
And it's a weird situation to me where, like I said, I feel like if I was making this thing and I guess I thought it was still good, I would want to do more, but that's me. You know, and I see a lot of authors who are like that, but then you also have, you know, examples like Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, where some of the creators are also criticized for its length. I feel like there's a happy medium in there. I feel like, you know, there are these shorter stories like Full Metal Alchemist that you don't want to go on too long because maybe, you know, you don't have more ideas, even though I have them. But I don't really see how a universe like Sailor Moon that's, you know, this entire galaxy with all these different characters and things, I don't see how you run out of ideas for that.
There's a lot of extremely interesting concepts that do remind me a lot of, like, Western superhero stories. So I just think that, you know, it could be very interesting to continue a universe like that, in my opinion.
I think it could too. It's just like, it seems like Naoko wasn't a fan, and I can only speak to the reports of people changing the story, but then she also wasn't a fan of having to write more of the story. So I'm kind of sitting here like wondering what, I know she cared about this, and I guess I'm kind of wondering what's the difference with where it's left, because it's something where they still make money off of it. They still do all this merch all the time based off of earlier seasons
doesn't
and
her
books.
husband still write his own manga too?
Yes, but he's not nearly as organized as Naoko was.
Yeah, that's true. I just kind of was wondering, you know, if...
Probably totally different mindsets as creatives, you know, but I agree, you know, I don't want to ever bully someone into making more of something, you know, and I don't ever want to sound entitled in terms of like, you owe us. But it is frustrating when, you know, you have something like this that very clearly matters because the author created it, but also I don't think would really be nearly as beloved of a story if people didn't support it.
Yeah. And if it didn't continue at past the Dark Kingdom arc, in my opinion.
Right, it probably would have just been seen more as a cult classic.
Yeah.
But I do think it's weird, though, that they're willing to, whether it be Toei, because I don't think they have too many rights anymore, or Naoko or whoever, that people are willing to still merchandise the hell out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is what's weird, where it's like, if you want it to be done and you want to move on, why are you still milking the merch?
Maybe now that Naoko has a lot of the rights, maybe she will think about writing more, hopefully. That's kind of what I want.
But
however,
I think she did still have manga rights before. You know, it was just the anime stuff was up in the air with, like, being involved with Toei.
Maybe she didn't write because she didn't want an
them
anime
to butcher it.
Yeah, to butcher it, so she was waiting until she had the rights for that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have no idea. It's all speculation, but it frustrates me.
So we have a couple of reasons why somebody would not want it to continue, and to be honest, I can't think of very many reasons why you wouldn't, just because it kind of seems like, you know, a really good thing to continue,
The sky's
in my
the
opinion.
limit.
Yeah. However, this is how Naoko, it seems anyway, wanted the story to end, and it kind of seems as though she's not too interested in continuing it from what we've seen as of recent, because it is 2024 now, and she hasn't written anything since the 90s. And then also, you know, like I was saying before, unlike Dragon Ball, there isn't really a protege that Naoko had for continuing the series. You know, it's mostly just her thing that she was doing, and there's not really like successor writers who could help continue the series. So it kind of seems like without her being the point of, you know, pushing it, then there's not really any way to continue it.
It's difficult because there have been people who have come in. I've literally read fanfics of Sailor Moon that are up there with actual writing for Sailor Moon. Like, there are talented fans who want to create stuff. Like, there's always someone out there with a story who could tell a good story. The question is how you find them, how you make sure that they don't completely butcher that universe and turn it into something totally different that, you know, ruins what it was. I think those are things that are difficult. You see that, you spoke about comic books, and just briefly, you see that in comic books. Nobody who's writing characters nowadays that you see, like, you can think of off the top of your head, Batman, Spider-Man, like the big boys, you know, who sell millions of dollars of stuff, they're not the creators who made them. The people who are writing those characters now, some of them have done an amazing job, but some of them have done horrendously bad because they didn't have that buy-in of, I created this is my baby, this matters to me. Some of those people, it's more like, well, I got put on this title by Marvel, I guess I'll make it what I want. And that, I think, was a big concern when you have continuations.
That is, yeah.
Ending up with someone like that.
I also think talking about this from the aspect of a fan, you know, obviously we want more, but from the aspect of money, like from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense that you wouldn't continue Sailor Moon because it sells.
Yeah.
Sailor Moon just sells. End of story. All of her merch sells. You know, every time they release something, people are just like, whoa, I really want this. I'm like a huge Sailor Moon fan. So I guess I don't understand the whole business aspect of why not continue it.
I hate thinking of things from this perspective because it feels soulless, but it genuinely is what a lot of these businesses think of it, you know, as. It's like, it's money to them, right? So, I mean, even from the soulless aspect of money, you're right. It's odd to me that it just stops. And I kind of think that this is just an assumption. I think with Naoko and with Toei for a long time, and with a lot of these different people who have had hands in it, I do think they've been kind of trying to have a hand in and out of the cookie jar at the same time, where like they want to keep pushing merch, they want to keep pushing adaptations, they want to keep pushing this stuff, but they don't want to push the creative building more. And I think that that's kind of frustrating to me, where it's not allowed to just rest at all. There's always some new thing trying to get money out of the fans, but there's not new art. And that to me is kind of frustrating, where it feels like it's, if you don't want to milk it, you're already milking it. You're milking it for merchandise right now.
Yeah, the whole thing kind of makes me sad because I really wish that we could get more, especially with how I really enjoy the way the art style and the way the storytelling started to become shown in the last couple of films for
Mhm.
Crystal. And I would love to see more high quality things like that, coming from Naoko. Maybe even if it's not Sailor Moon, maybe if she does something else that's like really popular, that's kind of similar. I would like to see more, I guess, because I really like that universe a lot, and I just want more.
Yeah, and I think that her work has influenced and affected a lot of people, and I understand that with that you feel maybe like you have a duty to not screw it up. But it's frustrating to me to watch figure after figure be printed, reprint after reprint of the manga to be printed, and yet we get no new story. To me, that kind of feels like you're cashing in on what was made without wanting to make more, and as a creator, you have the right to do that, but it's frustrating if you're a fan of that thing where you feel like, hey, I've been supporting this forever, and all you want is, $30 for another action figure, and not to actually write.
Yeah.
I think I saw a lot of that frustration in previous videos from comments that I didn't know people had. I've been very careful to not voice too much of it because people get very defensive of, manga and anime writers and, different people like this. But I do think that there is a general frustration in the fandom of like, hey, we've kind of paid the bills here for you for a very long time by buying these things over and over again. It would be nice to get a short story every 5 years.
I mean, even like a parallel universe story, people like that.
Yeah.
It would be fun. Or if you really wanted to, you could reboot it and have a new timeline with Sailor Moon, but like doing different things, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they do it with superheroes all the time.
Yeah, I just think I don't want to cash in, but I do want something good. And we talked about, you could do video games to continue it. We already made a video about that specifically.
Yeah, we have an in-depth video about that, so you guys should go check that out.
So there's lots of different ways. But Jill, I think we should wrap it up because we're going to have lunch here real quick. But let us know what people can do to help support this channel other than Fortnite code DJAY123.
Yeah, so we have a Fortnite code, which is in all caps DJAY123. But we also have a shop called CosmoBunny.shop. I run it. I make really awesome stuff out of recycled manga and recycled comic books. I make resin pieces like coasters and keychains and other such things. And I've been putting a lot more new stuff on my website. I think that's really fun. I love making these transformative pieces out of things that otherwise would have just been thrown into the trash.
And usually end up in landfills. And this is kind of supposed to be the whole point of transformative art and fair use, is taking something that you don't replace the original work in any way, but you use that original work to create something entirely new.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do, and then we make sure the rest actually goes into recycling.
And then I also make handmade beaded jewelry, so definitely go check that out. You can use in all caps Sailor for 10% off of your purchase on my website. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!
Bye!